Okay.
Thanks.
It's just landscape.
It's unique. I like it.
Okay, we are now streaming live.
Great. All right. I will kick it off then. So thanks everyone for joining. As you know, the Traffic and Transportation Committee is being tasked with analyzing pedestrian safety by the chair, Jay Murray, off the back of two fatalities that has occurred recently in the Bay Ridge and Dyker Heights area. The first was from November 16th at the intersection of around Marine Avenue and 96th Street. Anne Marie Weisner was struck around 6:40 p.m. And obviously, the fatality happened. And then more recently, on January 16th, Xiaohong Chen was hit by a different car at 8:10 p.m. So, two very closely timed fatalities. I think it's worth us as TNC committee to review previous things that has been done through the committee board to speak about those and really to strategize and discuss what we can do moving forward and what we can discuss with DOT moving forward. I know that Josephine has prepared some remarks around the T intersections, which Marine Avenue and 96 is a T intersection. So I'll hand it over for her to discuss that, and then later on we will also have some stats to discuss through that I've pulled from Crash Mapper.
Okay, thank you, Jack. So initially, just to share with the committee, over the summer, the Department of Transportation initiated a rule change proposal that was publicized. We did ask DOT if they could come today and present what the status is, what the update is, but they're not ready yet to present. But I did put a few slides together to share with you, really just to review what those just to share what the New York City Do rule change, specifically regarding T intersections. It was a broader rule change, but we were focused on the T intersection because there were some questions that were raised. So we will have DOT back, hopefully when they're ready, but I just will briefly go over it with you. So New York City rules, a rule is a standard or requirement set by a city agency which affects members of the public. So when an agency changes a rule or alters a rule as forms an amendment, it's a public process, there's a public hearing, and a notification is sent to the community board. So in this rule change, New York City DOT proposed to amend the following sections, specifically relating to T intersections. And they were sections 4-01B of the traffic rules of the City of New York, would be expanded to apply to T intersections where there is an existing pedestrian ramp. Sections 4-04 C3 would be revised due to the amendments being made to the definition of unmarked crosswalk. Section 4-08 F7 would be amended to prohibit vehicles from blocking pedestrian ramps. So in the amendment to section 4-01, the bold and underlined section is new. Added to the term unmarked crosswalk means that part of a roadway other than a marked crosswalk that is included within the extensions of the sidewalk lines between opposite sides of the roadway at an intersection, provided that A, the roadway crosses through the intersection rather than ending at the intersection, and or B, all traffic on the opposing roadway is controlled by a traffic control device, and or C, this is the added part, a pedestrian ramp exists at such intersection where the roadway does not cross through the intersection and there is at least one pedestrian ramp within the limits of the crosswalk. The next change was the deletion of a portion of 404.3, no pedestrian shall cross a roadway except at a crosswalk. And so that's the new rule that stands by itself. And then the next amendment to section 4-08 is that pedestrian ramps, number 7, alongside or in a manner which obstructs a curb area which has been cut down, lowered, or otherwise constructed or altered to provide access for persons with disabilities at a marked or unmarked crosswalk. So there are some examples of T intersections in the district that I highlight to share with the committee on how this will change, which intersections it impacts. This is an example, these photos are examples of traffic signal T intersections. So that's a straight line where the crosswalks or the streets don't go through. So you can see here, this one is 86th Street at 10th Avenue. It's signaled. There's crosswalks at each of the T's. There is daylighting, meaning vehicles are not to park in between the two crosswalks. There are several examples, these we put together as examples of traffic signal T intersections with ped ramps, daylighting, and painted crosswalks. The next slide is examples of T intersections with daylighting, with ped ramps without traffic control devices or painted crosswalks. 68th Street at Bay Cliff Terrace, 67th Street at Bergen Place, Wakeman Place at Sedgwick Place are examples, which you could see here in this photo. This is 68th Street at Bay Cliff Terrace. The next is this slide is an example of T intersections that would be, that the new rules would apply to. So here are some examples. 68th Street at Owl's Head Court. So you can see here in this photo of the T, there are cars that are parked opposite the pedestrian ramps. 68th Street at Bliss Terrace, 68th Street at Narrows, those are all along Owl's Head Park. So this rule change would not permit vehicles to park at the pedestrian ramp or at the crosswalk. Now, this was a topic that questions were raised by some of the board members, which we could talk at some point during the meeting today. You know, if down the road we would like DOT to come in, you know, will these intersections be studied? Will they be looked at for traffic control devices? Many of them have been looked at in the past, and unfortunately, T intersections often don't meet the warrants to have a traffic control device. So, but DOT now, there was at one time a policy not to have painted crosswalks where there was not a traffic control device. That since has changed. So these may be in fact eligible for, you know, once they're studied, may be eligible for marked crosswalks, and something the committee may want to look at, provided the rule change, and something that we can ask DOT either in advance or when they come out to a meeting. So I just wanted to share with the committee that traffic-related Department of Transportation requests are very commonplace at the district office. We currently have close to 50 Department of Transportation traffic studies that are in the works that we had requested or are following because of resident concerns. I brought out my binder, you know, a lot of them, once they're approved or if they're denied, you know, we move them into different categories. But many of our intersections, you know, we get requests all the time for traffic control studies. As you can see, traffic signal, speed bumps, bike lanes, multi-way stops, signal timing, all types of DOT related to very big agency. And anyone can make a request of a traffic study right online. Certain ones you can call 311, others you have to easily make online through a request to the commissioner's office. And when you do so, say, example, you want a traffic control device at an intersection, it will actually prompt you to a map so you can see if there's already a traffic study in progress or not. So there's no duplicity, and I think that's pretty helpful. Jack has put together using
Josephine,
Yes.
before we go on, I would like to make a comment about the T intersections.
Okay.
There's one on my corner on Fort Hamilton Parkway and 99th Street.
Uh-huh.
And it's, if someone is crossing from Fort Hamilton Parkway towards 4th Avenue, there is absolutely no way that they can be seen. So if there must be a marked crosswalk where there is a T intersection. And there might even be one in front of the senior center. I'm not 100% sure. I'll double check tomorrow.
There's not.
There's not.
A marked crosswalk? No.
Yeah.
No, there's
Um,
not a marked crosswalk, but is there a curb cut?
There is a curb cut in the center of the senior center.
So,
I
so,
don't know if that's
and
flush
we have
with,
repeatedly asked for a crosswalk there.
that's, I believe, one of the locations that even has a traffic control device study, because that's been requested, you know, a number of times. That's Fourth Avenue, I'm sorry, Fort Hamilton.
For
across-
Hamilton and 100th Street. But,
Oh,
but there's also one on 99th that's very problematic.
Okay, I've added to the list. Thank you, Doris.
There are more, but they're not coming off the top of my head.
I think a sampling of those, you know, we could really look at the map and just take a look at all of the T intersections in the board. But that was just a sampling that slide that. prior
Because I
slide,
believe, I truly believe that this decision is putting people at risk.
Okay, so to be looked at for crosswalks, got it. So Jack, I'm gonna turn to the next slide. Street safety stats. Jack has done an incredible job. He's put together a Excel a spreadsheet of all intersections in CB10, 494 of them ranked by, I believe they're ranked by total injuries and fatality and ranking from worst to least.
Yeah, so these are total numbers coming from between December 2018 to 2023, December 2023. So about 5 years of information within here.
Okay, so this was I just did a snapshot, but I can actually pull up the spreadsheet, Jack, if you like.
Sure.
I'm going to stop this share and let's see. Okay, Jack, here is the
So I think it would be good for this link also to be sent out to the board, to the committee members after this. This is a public link that can be shared. So about a little bit less than 500 intersections. Hopefully I've covered all of them in CB10 across both Bay Ridge and Decker Heights here. What the information here shows from the first column all the way to the last column is either the street or avenue. Roughly speaking, it's like, you know, it's going to be parallel whenever it's street, and then avenues are going to be parallel to each other, but sometimes they might be different. I pulled in information from the 2011 report that gave a score. The higher the worse an intersection is likely to be based on a number of criteria that can also be circulated. So, you know, typically I think the highest score was a 14 in that report, indicating most likely in need of a traffic study in that report. Then from the rest of it, intersection type, I've categorized it in terms of what kind of light it has, whether it has stop signs, partial stop signs, etc. Crosswalk, whether it has crosswalks on all four part of the roads, or if it's partial coverage and crosswalks, or if there's no crosswalks. Pedestrian signals, if there is existing pedestrian signals, or if there's partial pedestrian signals, of which a lot of roads does have. Bike lanes, what kind of bike lanes it has, whether it has bike lanes, full bike lanes, or just a share on at least one of the crossroads. And then just some general comments around what kind of intersection it is, where I noticed some extra things. So I didn't categorize it, unfortunately, in terms of T intersection. There was a lot of hours of work on this one. Cyclist fatalities. So these numbers come directly from Crash Mapper. The first four columns are around fatalities and categorized into cyclist, motorist, and pedestrian. And then the last four columns are around injuries. So cyclist injury, pedestrian injury, and motorist injury. And then they just sum it up. So the column L, P, and Q just sum up fatalities, injuries, and in total fatalities. So this is like the starting information. There's a couple other tabs, but I'll stop here for the board members to discuss a little bit.
It's a fantastic job, Jack.
Yeah, great job.
Yeah,
Awesome job.
Wow, that
Could
is
you
all
send,
the information.
could you send the report to us so we can all look at it more intently?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe-
phenomenal job.
It's a Google link. I just want to for newer board members, the community board, what Jack references in the 2011 report was a pedestrian safety conditions report that was issued that provided extensive recommendations at that time to the Department of Transportation, working with them on surveys for many of the intersections throughout the district. Many of the recommendations were implemented. I think that, getting that report out too, and speaking to Jack, maybe looking at some of the pedestrian safety issues that the committee would like to see reviewed over the next few months of the session is important to begin. The compilation of data here that Jack put together based on New York City Crash Mapper data is really a great tool, I think, and very helpful and useful for us, and I'm sure DOT, as we move forward and invite them on specific topics, the appropriate members of the team on what the committee would like to, have reviewed. The Department of Transportation, I spoke to earlier today, and, in addition to all the studies that are ongoing, they, hope to be able to come to us, and they said whatever intersections we would like, or if we want, certain topics, even a how do we do a traffic signal 101 study? I mean, they are willing to come to the board. They have initiated, DOT is currently working, in addition to the 50 traffic requests for specific intersections and requests. They are currently working on a 4th Avenue safety study. They've been going to schools along 4th Avenue, and they've commenced that on improvements to make 4th Avenue safer. You could see here on Jack's list, the 65th Street corridor has been the highest crash corridor in CB10. Sadly, the 65th Street and 4th Avenue, which you could see on this, ranked with the top injuries and fatalities in the district in this time period. 65th Street at 6th Avenue, 65th Street at 5th Avenue.
Yeah.
Ovington and 7th Avenue, I just will share with board members. That is a very, that was an intersection that was identified by the board, asking DOT to do extensive studies. They did a similar school study a few years back, which resulted in a comprehensive safety plan along Ovington and 7th Avenue. And sadly, last year, there was a protected bike lane on the southern side. Many of you know that connected it. We had a pedestrian fatality there last year. And it's a very big school crossing. It's a growing school crossing for PS 170. I heard from parents today, the school crossing guard there is no longer at that intersection. She moved on to a different job, and so they're looking to replace that intersection. So 7th Avenue southbound also had a serious pedestrian injury at 72nd Street at 7th Avenue. So, and it remains in the top 5 categories. Dan Heddix actually did and then, did some mapping on that and some data on that as well. So I think those top few intersections, maybe taking a look at again, is something that I know some board members have thought might be a good, way to survey. That's how the last pedestrian survey, pedestrian safety condition report was. Sometimes, members went out, there were survey sheets, Jack. So I will send all of the committee members the PDF of this last report to kind of get a sense of what we did in the past and moving forward, if we want to replicate or come up with new ideas or suggestions. So Jack, I know you wanted to go around the committee table to see what board members' thoughts were.
So Jack, the column F and Q, where it says total injuries and total fatalities, what is the
Mhm.
time frame for those numbers?
So the time frame for all these numbers are the 5-year period between 2023, December 2023, and the 5 years before that. So I think 2018 to 2023.
So we're saying in 5 years, we had 50 fatalities?
No,
50
no,
fatalities.
no.
Yeah, those are
This
the
is
two columns of
total-
questioning.
It's total of injuries, Dean, so that's column P, and total fatality, one, so it would be, this is total, I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
Casualty.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, oh gosh, I can't make this column reads
It reads total
total
fatality.
fatality plus injuries.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
can
okay.
see it on this bar. I can't extend.
Yeah, but what is the time frame for that? That's what I'm asking.
5
years.
years. 5 years, December 2018 to December 2023 inclusive of the Decembers.
So in
So-
5 years,
At 4th Avenue and 65th Street, we had 50 fatalities in 5 years?
No, 50,
No, we
Fatalities
had,
plus injuries.
yeah,
It-
injuries plus one fatality.
It's a combined number.
It's a
but-
combined number.
But
It's still-
but at the end, you have two columns. I'm asking the same question, I'm not getting the answer. It says total injuries, 49, then total fatalities, 50 for 65th Street and 4th
Yeah,
Avenue.
yeah.
What is the time frame for that?
there,
not
she
5
just
years.
expanded the column.
Jean, the column is expanded now. That last column is total injuries plus fatality
over 5 years.
over 5 years. So there was one fatality in that 5-year period, and there were 49 injuries. That includes motorist injuries at 37, pedestrian injuries at 7, and cyclist injuries at 5.
Okay,
So
so
it's-
what is
it's
this next column here? That total fatalities.
No,
Next
so
Plus
the
injuries.
last column is total fatality plus injuries,
Okay,
okay?
Okay.
We expanded the column, I'm sorry. It was-
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
okay. Thank you.
When,
Sorry, I missed it.
when I look at 65th Street and 4th and Bay Ridge, Shore Road Drive and 4th, which are just like almost next to one another, and I do the total, there is an accident there every month. When I add them up and divide them by 5, there is in that section, and that's very concerning.
That's the entrance to the highway there.
The entrance and exit, right?
May I ask a question? I don't know which
Sure,
way to look.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Jack, I'll
Yeah,
look this
yeah.
way. I know this is a compilation of the last 5 years, but had you noticed in the statistics if there's been there a greater number of incidents over the last year or two? Was there any trend?
Mean an uptick?
And yes, an uptick,
Or a downtick.
there a greater, right, or was there a greater concentration of incidents more recently, or what was the trend over the 5 years?
Yeah, so this is where I think Josephine at the office, an intern had posted some information around some corridors like 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue, etc. And what I had noticed there, and those are just alongside those corridors, that as you might expect, 2020 there was a down, there was a decrease in number of injuries and fatalities, and then afterwards it went back up to what it was like 2022 or so, went back up to what it was in 2019, 2018.
Wow.
Oh,
Looking at
Let me
this,
pull that up.
Well,
Looking at-
COVID probably would have impacted that somewhat along that 5-year span, but it would be interesting to see the data plotted in some either line or bar charts to really get a sense if that information is available by year, you know?
I think we could do that even by this graphing. We could prepare that for sure.
and I mean, in terms of things to raise with the DOT, like as I'm looking at this, there are really sort of 3 corridors that are kind of standing out to me. There's the BQE and the surrounding streets. There's 4th Avenue and there's 86th Street. So, you know, I mean, Josephine, I don't know what's happening with the Fourth Avenue?
So Fourth
Study that they're
Avenue
doing?
DOT is doing a corridor safety study.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's being 65th Street, we've done a corridor safety study many times.
Yeah,
And 65th Street is our high crash corridor, so you're
Yeah.
correct, feeding into the BQE. 7th Avenue southbound, always been an area,
yeah.
concern, and DOT initiated a study there, a corridor study. And that doesn't mean once the corridor study is completed, we don't come back and look, but in the example of Ovington and 7th Avenue. After all that extensive study and major changes there and the implementation of a protected bike lane, we had a fatality. Could we look back at that intersection again? And I don't think we should not. I think it's okay to ask DOT, maybe we could take another, look
Yeah.
and also to look at the crash reports, and really understanding the specifics, what time of day, was it, mid-block, was where were the crashes?
Yeah.
I know in the case of the fatality, only because I happened to walk by, at the scene, I know that it was a turning vehicle,
Yeah.
that was heading west that made the left turn at Ovington where that fatality took place. But I think, that's something that the committee has requested in the past too. And DOT has a unit that would likely be helpful to talk to us about.
And question here? Yeah.
Say,
The
Joe,
site-
on 65th Street, I'm sorry if I interrupted anyway. On 65th Street, between 4th and 5th and 5th and 6th, there have been steel plates in the roadway, I think for decades. Do you know anything about that? Why they're just, there and they've never been covered over, or I don't know. It's years and years and years that they're just there.
In the center of the roadway?
In the roadway, yes. I mean, it covers like a lane and a half of the
Unless
roadway.
there's a building issue there, I'll check. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I just want to let Jack know, we've been joined by Assemblyman Lester Chang. He's here and he had a question, Assemblyman?
Yes, well, thank you. The cyclist, does it include motorcycle, mopeds, or just a mechanical two-wheel bicycle? How do you define the cyclist?
That's a really good question. My understanding that cyclists, that category includes e-mobility devices as well. That's been a growing, I know that, but I'm pretty sure that that's how it's categorized. I don't see a separate field on Crash Mapper that separates.
I'm interested, is it the unregulated, the two-wheelers that are the internal combustion engines, those mopeds, and or e-bicycle, e-batteries? I'm really interested in that. Because those are fast moving bike.
Ooh,
Miles an
okay.
hour.
Question we can confirm. with-
Yeah.
Yes,
You're not that question, because my first question is, I have motorcycle bikes, moped, city bikes, all categorized
Yes.
together. It used to be,
Separate.
in my age group, it was always like bicycles and then versus everybody else. Now it's like,
Well, I think in terms of capturing the data and injuries, I think that's a good question, a question that we can certainly ask, to see
Yeah.
how that's.
Yeah, I think that the data would. Sorry, go ahead.
Jeff. No, go ahead.
Just two follow-up points. So I looked at Crash Mapper website, but it doesn't have a definition. I believe the definition would come from DOT, so we'll need to ask them there. It's arguable whether it's cyclists or motorists, because even though they're motorbikes, it could be considered motorists there as well. Second is the second tab on the spreadsheet is by street, where I know we're talking about different corridors here. If you could just click on the second tab, by street tab at the bottom.
Oh, on the bottom by street, I'm sorry.
So same information, but now streets and avenues are combined. And this one is sorted by column U first, which is total fatalities, and then sorted by total fatalities per injury. So everything here at the top of the list has at least one fatality here, and these are by corridors. I know we were talking about corridors here. That's why I like that.
When's the Fourth Avenue study gonna be done?
They're doing it. It's been long.
Yeah.
Question.
Cause that's horrifying.
Are there statistics about the private streets like the Bay Cliff Terrace or Ridge Court? do those streets have accidents more than? That'd be a legal issue because it's not illegal.
Well, going back to this, there are 494 intersections, so I mean, it's a lot of data to look at, and certainly.
I would say, a legal issue if it's an intersection that's not a public street.
No, because the intersection, the
intersection is public.
right, so the side street would be private, the side street is private, but the intersection
Private
is
streets,
public,
yeah,
yeah.
private streets, are there any?
We have to go through them. I'm sorry, Chris, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to make an observation, and I think it goes to some of the assembly members' question, or what he shared as well about it. Just extends this a little bit. Is that I'm aware of on 4th Avenue, not in CB10, but 4th Avenue on like between 6th and 7th Street, where the road shares parking with the cycling lane. That's like catastrophic. I mean, what happens is when you go to turn up 7th Avenue, if there's a cyclist riding parallel with the parked cars, you cannot see them. And if they're on an e-bike going really quickly, that's like catastrophic. I don't know how that was, to be honest with you, I don't know how that was planned, that you would block a motorist's view of a bicyclist or e-bike rider on their right-hand side. So when they turn, they can't even see the cyclists they're sharing the road with. I don't know if we have that in the district where there's parking. I don't think we do. I'm not aware of it, but I wanted to share the observation because I know someone firsthand who was turning the road innocently, did not see a cyclist. The cyclist plowed right into the side of their car, picked their bike up, and rode away. It's a making of disaster the way that was planned out.
Heritage Park, right?
I'm sorry, there's a question, I'm just gonna,
I think the question was whether there are, I guess, the like ultra protected bike lanes where the bike lane is there's a parking lane between a bike lane and the regular street. I don't recall seeing any of that when I did the survey within CB10.
yeah, so I've added that, I've definitely added that as a question to DOT.
Are we talking about, there's a bike lane on the inside and then the parking lane on the outside of it, and then the regular traffic?
Yeah, I think
that's-
There's the only one that I know of is, I can think of is on Ridge Boulevard, right ahead of the Belt Parkway entrance.
by Wakeman Place.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
very
that's the
dangerous.
Greenway connector.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be interesting to see the comparison of the data, because I can't imagine it's higher than what we have on 4th Avenue right now.
What are you saying, Sunset Park?
Sunset Park, or wherever there are protected bike lanes along 4th Avenue
Well,
already.
I think we have to look at that.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
of
know there's
course.
a lot. Yeah, no, I don't know that.
Yeah.
I think we could certainly, look
Yeah,
at that.
that would be helpful.
The other big issue, pedestrian safety issue raised by local seniors in the district. And the board did work with Department of Transportation with senior sidewalk safety. And that is increasing use of the sidewalks for, motorized scooters, and which has come up with local senior centers. And we actually had a senior safety a number of years ago take a look at this, but enforcement and was one of the issues that was raised on there, and seniors continue to call the office about both crossing safety and sidewalk safety. And I thought it was a great opportunity to have seniors meet DOT, meet the police, department that's responsible for enforcement, kind of learn about ways to seek help, or to reach out and have, agency come and speak about areas of their concern. So I think that senior sidewalk safety is something that we may want to, take a look at, because it does come up. I'm sorry, did you have a question? Oh, no,
Yeah,
okay.
I will.
I've seen that firsthand, going to the senior center the last 6 years. You come out and you're on 4th Avenue, and then you go either left or right, and then somebody coming down the block, say Ovington, all of a sudden you're trying to cross the street in a scooter or a bike, or somebody's coming out the other way, and they're not making any sound, there's no warning, and a lot of the seniors, unfortunately, are hard of hearing.
Mhm.
And so maybe I might have a bike lane or something, they don't. And I've even had close calls, once I left the fence of the scene, all of a sudden there's like these kids that, somebody has a moped, like a teen, say a 20-year-old, but his 15-year-old brother is zooming down.
I do think that the whole e-mobility is a lot to learn there. I know there's some legislative initiatives, maybe delving into, what some of the efforts and come speak at the board meeting. Looking at some of the proposals that have been, initiated by our local, might be also something the committee might want to look at. So Jack, I've written a whole bunch of some of the suggestions that came up around the table today. And I will send to all the committee members the past reports, pedestrian safety reports, correct?
Can you list what do you have right now? Pedestrian, I mean, safety, what suggestion do you have right now?
Yeah, well, right now, we're looking at the data on some of the top intersections that, have high injury totals and high crash totals. A lot along the 65th Street corridor, those that border the BQE. 65th Street, Ovington Avenue, Bay Ridge Avenue, 4th Avenue, 86th Street, Bay Ridge Parkway. Just scanning through this,
Maybe signage maybe need to improve. If it's
Yeah.
motor vehicle, maybe signage maybe need to improve.
right. I mean, I'm looking at them in a holistic way,
Yeah.
education, outreach,
Yeah.
those are items that we've done in the past. I mean, I could share with the committee, specific to 4th Avenue, the board in the past has asked for, different improvements, from requesting a study for neck downs at corners along the entire stretch of 4th Avenue. This was supported and adopted by the board. When 5th Avenue was reconstructed a number of years ago, most of the corners have neck downs, which are really expand and extend the area of crossing. And that's a capital project. It's expensive. But it adds daylighting and greater visibility and a shorter crosswalk distance for seniors, and that's why that was done. Many of the corners along 4th Avenue and in certain areas where we do have daylighting, and DOT, I think, had recently expressed this in that conversation, is making that safe by buffering it. And neck downs is a capital project in a way that if you paint an area, cars can still access it. So in areas where there have been modifications by the use of paint, we've asked for boulders so cars, can't access that. So the issue of, neck downs, daylighting, there are a number of tools in the DOT toolbox that perhaps can be looked at. Sometimes there's eligibility, but they have national standards. Sometimes it's not. Maybe understanding what those standards are. I know it's been frustrating. We have many intersections where we've asked over and over again for a traffic control device, and it's failed to meet the warrants. So I think in just talking out loud from what Jack is saying is the committee really will decide on which intersections or what topics generally broader in a broader way that we can take a look at. And DOT is a partner, the police department who does enforcement, does education. There have been times where we have worked, to do that. We're not an enforcement agency, we're not the agency that conducts the studies, but certainly partnering and advocating and referring our all, whatever topics we want is something
Wow.
that committee.
Question? Go ahead,
Yes.
Counselor. This is a little far-fetched. There was a time when bicycles used to have these pennants on the time you put the back of the bicycle, and you'd see the pennant coming. And if an idea of people walking with the pennant so they could see people coming. Because a lot of it also has to do with the motor vehicles are a lot bigger with all these SUVs. Everyone has an SUV. Almost most cars are. And it's certainly, as I said, if this is causing a rise in accidents, that's why, because these vehicles are much bigger than,
Yeah, I don't know, right, I mean, that's a good data point to look at.
but as far as even now, it's carrying a flag, I mean,
That's really interesting. So that actually Bob thought to mind. So both the fatalities that were mentioned at the top of this meeting happened at night, right? One happened at around like 6 p.m. or so during some of the darkest days of darkest periods of the year, and then the other one happened at 8, which also like at night. So speaking about bikes, but also speaking about pedestrians, bikes are required to have bike lights. Have there been instances in the past where like DOT holds any kind of safety meeting or public forum about usage of lights and or any kind of giveaways with provide bike lights for those who can't potentially afford them and stuff?
Yes, an observation on those net lights in the corner. Be mindful, especially at 8th Avenue, illegal vendors use that space to sell their wares. Okay, they use that opportunity to sell. So I'm not sure how 4th Avenue would be, or 5th Avenue potentially. Even if you put concrete blocks, well, that's for vendors. They can use that as to sell their wares as well. If it chokes some walking spaces, but just be mindful about that. That unintended effect. Just be mindful. I'm trying to just something about that is to 8th Avenue is a big headache right now. Is to ban all vendors along the strip of 8th Avenue. Very similar in Queens of Main Street. They completely banned that by legislation in City Council. So that's something I want to reduplicate that along that. Completely banned on that. Illegal vendors on 8th Avenue.
It might be dense, but what do we mean by illegal vendors? I'm just curious.
Strictly, basically legal and illegal. No vendors at all. Vendor free street.
It's a problem on it.
But all vendors, not because if they're illegal, they shouldn't be there. Okay.
Well, the traffic rules of the city of New York actually provide for if pedestrian walkways are impeded. And there's a safety issue with maintaining the flow of sidewalk. Sidewalk space is very limited on 8th Avenue. And some of the concern is that pedestrians are forced into the roadway because there wasn't sidewalk access because of the space used by unlicensed vendors.
Okay.
There are rules about the size of tables, the width of, I mean, I can't repeat them to you off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But that has been an issue that's been raised along the 8th Avenue corridor. Yes, that's been worked with. And Department of Sanitation, which now has that unit. And I know some of the elected officials have walked along that to address.
I cleaned a couple of times with sanitation, but again, they come back. So it's short of legislation from City Council.
Yeah, I was just curious what fell within that. Yeah.
Josephine, we have a question from the public in the Q&A. Does CB10 have information on why DOT decided to install a speed bump on Marine at 97th rather than a stop sign / crosswalk?
Well, the speed bump was done as a result of a study that was conducted to slow traffic there. That was following the pedestrian fatality. There's studies still going on along that would include traffic control devices, including all-way stops. Those studies take a little bit longer, so that's not the only safety improvement that was approved. There is a safety study ongoing, so we will be notified by the Department of Transportation once that study is completed as to what additional improvements. Councilmember Brannan and State Senator Grenardis had arranged an on-site meeting there after the pedestrian fatality. And the Department of Transportation's team, their safety improvement is a specialty units within DOT were on site and immediately initiated some studies along that corridor.
Could you just remind us of which car, where that was? I did not hear which intersection it was.
That was Marine Avenue near 97th Street.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to raise to going back to in terms of sort of concrete steps we can consider for the future. You know, the reason I flagged earlier that a lot of these sort of highest casualty streets are around the BQE is because I think we all know the DOT is right now, you know, studying a redesign of the BQE. And you know, I think it would be really helpful at some point to get them in to talk about the proposed measures.
Yeah,
That
they're,
they're-
you know,
Yeah,
about
but like specifically related to
to the,
pedestrian safety, because
that report, I believe, is due very soon.
I believe so. I think so.
Yeah, so we should definitely have that top on our list.
Yeah, because with this additional information, it's just, you know, it kind of needs to be top of mind.
Okay.
And then the other, you know, just what people were talking about e-bikes. Have we ever considered a joint meeting with the police and public safety committee? Maybe with the precinct present to sort of talk about what enforcement options are
Yes,
available.
We've had.
Oh, that's
We've
happened.
had
Okay,
that,
I'm
yes.
new here.
No, I know,
Sorry.
no, we've definitely done that. We've had enforcement, and there's specific personnel within the command as well as at the borough level that deals with traffic stats, analyses, and enforcement.
Okay.
So that's something that we can definitely do. Thank you. Look,
The state level, we ever considered licensing
you know,
mopeds or e-bikes?
there are a number of
Even
legislative,
Scooters are ahead. I just almost ran into one this evening.
I know there are a number
Going
of
right against the
legislative
light.
initiatives from the point of, you know, what I've heard just reporting on the point of sale. Many are not, you know, certain, there's all different classifications. And there are different legislative initiatives out there. I think we could take some time to.
Clarify some things, right? If you go to DMV website, especially for two-wheelers, there is a specific regulation registration that you have to,
Mhm.
but they're not being adhered to. And yes, point of sale, I believe this is a bill, one of my colleagues has either created or hasn't, not yet committee level, is a point of sales for what do you call it, internal but combustion engine. You have to have register at point of sales. I also initiated, not yet being written right now and study on is codify, make sure helmets, given federal laws are any age of 14 below have to have a helmet. They're not being enforced, but I'll strengthen that. Next is a passenger on those mopeds and all that.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
My researcher to see are there any codification on that? If not, then I'll codify that you cannot have a family of 4 on a moped. Okay, so we'll codify that as well. So that's being studied to make sure that are there existing regulation, and if not, then I will propose for that and put in committee. You know, if it's designed for 2, then it's for 2, not for 3 or 4. So where those things, okay, and there is laws right now about registration, but especially for a mechanical bike, there are, but they're not being enforced. At the same time, as many of the bikes are being sold to what do you call it, undocumented people. And how do you register them who are not documented? And when you register, they have to buy insurance. And if they are not documented, how can they buy insurance without a driver's license? So those are legal issues. And I've had an insurance broker who told, and I asked that person is, how much is an insurance for 2 wheels, like 2 wheels, and the price is more than the cost of a bike. So there is another issue, then should the state create, my thought is, can the state create a no fault risk pool? All right, and then of course administered by private industry. Should we create a no fault risk pool with a low premium that gives incentive to buy insurance? So if someone get hurt, they get something, then nothing. So those are a lot of issues. Registrations is who's legal to buy it or not. Insurance premium have to be made sense. all those lines, so it's I don't know how many years we can attack that, but the one I can do something is bike helmets at a point of sales, and every bike shop should have helmets for sale. And limit the amount of passengers on those two-wheelers. Those I can, work on.
I just want to say, with
Yes,
the two-wheelers on bikes, any type of bike, so I'm gonna just say anything.
okay,
right? There was a family that lived in my building, the Rodriguez's, and one of them, the dad, he's a young dad, he has 4 kids.
uh-huh,
And I saw him multiple times on his bike, moped, with all 4 kids, and
Yeah.
they're all under 6 years old. They, 2 in the front,
Yeah.
the little ones barely holding each other. And then I flagged him down and I said, this is really dangerous. No, don't worry, I know what streets to travel on. It's not that, it's, he's going in traffic with cars. I don't think I was more horrified by anything I ever saw.
there is law
Well,
about.
so to some extent, I think like a lot of this is somewhat victim blamey to me, right? Like maybe 2 people on a bike, like in many other cities in the world, like 2 people on a bike, tandem bikes, like it's we can't be victim blaming here. It's not the bikes that are creating unsafe streets, for my opinion. So I think that was
Toddlers, so,
Or family,
Yeah.
or,
or little ones, and a dad on a bike.
Saw it in Cairo too.
Okay, so Jack, I think we have a very good list here of topics for the committee to work on over the next few months. And, I think there was a lot of good ideas that were raised, having a joint committee, Daniel on, enforcement is a big component of
Mhm.
of street safety, is a component, right? Having Department of Transportation maybe speak to us about some of the BQE corridor. I mean, I think that's coming up very soon.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag it.
In March. But also speaking to the concerns of nearby streets and our analysis, looking at the past report, perhaps surveys, education, outreach, these all done in the past, and we can work, the community members here. I mean, you're new at the helm, Jack, and we congratulate you on your new position, and certainly
And your hard work.
hard work,
Yeah,
and
really.
we'll work on all the issues that committee members raise. Chris, did you have another question? I'm sorry, did I see his hand raised? No, okay.
I had mine up I mean, we were talking about pedestrians, and when we look at the report, you look at the big numbers, and the big numbers are motorists, motor vehicle accidents. I think we need to focus on pedestrians and cyclists first. That should be our priorities. Look at the worst intersections for pedestrian and cyclist injuries.
Okay.
What do you mean by cycle? In that, what do you mean by cyclists? I just want to be very clear on this.
Well,
we need to get a definition from DOT.
we need to have a breakdown, and I'm quite sure maybe if this is 5-year-old data, the 4 and 5-year-old data will not have a breakdown by that, but more recent may have. So I would say first and foremost pedestrians, and then second cyclists. And if we can get a breakdown on what type of cycles they're on, as opposed to,
I'm just trying to understand here. We're saying pedestrian and cyclist. Does this also include the moped on pedestrian? I mean, was that a combination? I mean, how do we break this?
we don't know the
breaking
breakdown from looking at the report. We don't know that breakdown.
Yeah, let me help answer that. So within CraftsMapper, they categorize injuries and fatalities into pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists, right? We don't have an answer right now as to whether a e-bike rider is a motorist versus a cyclist. We will need to get that from DOT because they are the end result providers of this information.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So thanks everyone. This is a fantastic conversation. I think Josephine has wrote down a lot. I wrote down a lot as well on upcoming on suggestions that everyone has had. I think it'd be good for us to meet with the Police and Public Safety Committee, with the precinct member to talk about safety. I think it'd be
Yes.
good to get the DOT representatives to discuss with us, either on a BQE or on just the general data that we have. After this meeting, Josephine will send across everything that she has around this report, as well as previous reports that has been sent. Our next meeting is on February 15th. I believe DOT is coming to speak with us about a Fifth Avenue item. I can't remember the top of my head, but the next meeting is on the 15th. We might add this as an additional agenda item to speak more about this after committee members has had a chance to think through and digest everything that we've discussed so far.
Would that be
So-
Zoom? That's a Zoom meeting, right?
It'd be a hybrid meeting, yes, like this
Hybrid.
one. That meeting will also have Community Board 7 because the Fifth Avenue reconstruction bridge and contractor has been awarded. So there's going to be a presentation about that capital project, including the Fifth Avenue bridge that borders CB's 10 and 7.
Yes.
I think we have
Okay.
one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a public question?
Yeah, am I allowed to speak at all?
You got, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I wrote down something I just wanted to, if you could give me a couple minutes to just,
Your name.
express my view on this topic. And also Jack, this is the first time I'm hearing about you. You're awesome. Thank you for your advocacy.
I'm sorry.
And you really seem to be grasping
Thank
the
you.
severity and urgency.
I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Your name,
You have to talk a little louder because.
Okay.
your name, please.
My name is Konstantin Hatsis. So 2023 was the deadliest year for cyclists since the city began keeping records in the 1990s. Traffic violence also claimed the lives of 93 pedestrians, and in fact, 2023 overall was the deadliest year for all traffic-related fatalities in the 5 boroughs. In November, a 72-year-old woman named Anne-Marie Weisner was murdered on my block in a hit and run by a reckless driver who's yet to be identified or held accountable. Bay Ridge has been plagued by reckless drivers for as long as I can remember, and I've been urging CB10 and our representatives to take action in securing the safety of our community for years. Unfortunately, our community board does not seem to share the same concern or sense of urgency in dealing with the problem of traffic violence and recklessness on our streets. In a recent email exchange, Josephine Beckman claimed that roadway redesigns alone do not prevent serious and fatal crashes, and that CB10 has advocated for street safety in the past. However, CB10 has rejected any serious proposals to create permanent safety improvements in Bay Ridge, including expanding the protected bike lane on 4th Avenue down to Cannonball Park. 4th Avenue is a Vision Zero priority corridor, which means it is known to be dangerous for all. For perspective, Hoboken implemented a similar Vision Zero program and actually followed through with proposals made by the necessary agencies there. They've had 0 roadway fatalities in over 4 years, including pedestrians and cyclists, all kinds of cyclists, and stand as a prime example of what can be achieved when a community implements necessary safety measures. I spoke to Senator Cunardi's office this week, and they explained how Marina Avenue will be undergoing some changes to address the issues residents face there. They also mentioned how the red curb cutouts, the T intersections without the crosswalks, will be removed because they are not legal crosswalks and create a false sense of safety when crossing the street. In the same regard, I'd like to make it clear that the few bike lanes that do exist in Bay Ridge are merely paint on asphalt, and paint is not infrastructure. They provide 0 protection to anyone using them, are constantly blocked by vehicles, and achieve a similar false sense of safety to riders who think drivers will respect their existence on the road. We surely cannot enforce our way out of this issue. The NYPD have demonstrated time and time again that they are inept and unwilling to address the myriad of traffic issues that plague our streets. From speeding to running red lights to obscured or fake plates or blocked crosswalks, the NYPD would rather scroll on their phones while idling in a bike lane than do the jobs they're being paid for. In fact, many of the reckless drivers here are NYPD or display NYPD placards, stickers, or badges and constantly position themselves above the law with impunity. Measures such as protected bike lanes, daylighting, narrowing of traffic lanes, and raised crosswalks do actually work. There have been multiple studies spanning decades, at least a decade in Bay Ridge. It has been demonstrated in places like Hoboken where residents took the bold steps to ensure the safety of their communities. There's no reason that in 2024, we are still having these debates and beating around the bush over something that is so pressing and 100% preventable. No one else should die on our streets because of your inaction or fear of change.
Jack?
Thank you for that, Constantine. I think we really appreciate your comments. I will say we, CB10 and all other community boards are accepting applications that are due February 19th. I encourage you to see if you can potentially apply, because I think advocacy is very important. I think that's why we are all here. CB10 as a board and as a committee is mostly advisory. And so we are, we can push for things. We can advocate for changes in our neighborhood that make our neighborhood better. We don't have any like enforcement action, unlike NYPD and unlike DOT. So this is what we can do as a community.
Thank you. Hey, Jack. All right, so then on to our next. I'm sorry, Christopher, you had a question?
Not necessarily a question, just a suggestion maybe. I don't know if the committee wants to consider this, but perhaps maybe just like a national night out, we have like a night of safety and we get information what the state laws are for helmets on bicycles, e-bikes, etc. And just get information out there so that as a community we make everyone safe and avoid fatalities. We might want to think about something like that. Just a thought.
Great, thank you. Jack?
All right. I don't see any other raised hands. Don't see any
Motions?
questions on the board. Yeah, any motions to close?
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
All right.
Okay.
I think I see a second in the room. There it is.